Okay, so now it's time to put it all together. So we've got basically our console laid out. We've gone over the kind of general overview of how things are laid out in the desk. So now I'm just going to try to build a mix on the StudioLive. So I have a session here that's playing back from Capture. It's basically just a 32-channel recording of a band from a church that I've worked with in Atlanta called North Point Community Church. And so I've got basically 10 channels of drums, bass, some guitars, some keyboards, some vocals. So it's not a super complicated setup. We've got 32 channels, 4 vocals, a basic rhythm section band, and a couple of tracks. So I'm going to see how quickly I can get a mix together on this console. So there's a few things I want to go over before I start, because I'd like to just sort of go and let you guys listen to how I'm building it as I go. So for each parameter, whether it's a gate, a compressor, or an EQ, when you're starting to engage those things, the first thing you have to do is turn them on. So you hit the power button on each parameter, whether it's a compressor or an EQ. So you'll see me go through and do some of that stuff. And then, I'm basically not going to do a deep dive into the reasons why I'm doing this. I'm just trying to make things sound good. So if you see an EQ approach to a certain instrument, don't think, oh, that's the way I have to do EQ on an acoustic guitar. It's not necessarily. It's just what I'm hearing on this particular guitar in this performance from this person on that day. So don't take anything that I'm doing in terms of EQ or compression as a sort of gospel truth of how I think you should do it. It's really just based on what we're hearing. So before we do anything, I just want to push up all the faders so you can hear kind of what we're working with, because this is a really good band playing really good parts with good microphones that are in the right place. So the tracks are captured really well. So in a way, I've got the best case scenario because I'm not having to do repair work with my mix. I'm really just doing a little bit of tone shaping and balancing and trying to get these already good parts to the best possible place they can be. So let's just listen to what we're starting with, and I think that might help. So again, there's no processing on any channels yet. This is just what they played. So we've got pretty good things to work with to start. So what I'm going to do is we've actually got a timer set up for 30 minutes. I'm just going to start, and we're going to go and try to build a mix in 30 minutes. Here we go. So I think you saw me do a couple things with the drums. Basically, with those toms, I was just copying and pasting the EQ. With the snare, I was working on some compression, a little bit of gating, trying to get a lot of compression on the snare bottom, just to try to make the drums feel like a cohesive unit. So I want my drums to feel like it's one thing. He's not playing kick, snare, hat. He's playing drums. So I want my drums to sound like a drum kit, okay? So now I'm going to add bass, guitars, try to find some clarity in those instruments and see how we can add that to the sound of the drums. One thing I would say about that bass guitar, I mean, come on, that's a really good sounding bass that's coming straight from the DI and his pedal board. So I'm not having to do much to that EQ wise. I just might want to find a little character out of the compressor to be able to add some unique sort of flavor to the sound of that bass. So I hope you're able to hear what I'm trying to do with some of those instruments in the band. It's really just to kind of come around the sound of the drums and give everything that's happening on stage a place, sonically and spatially. So to try to find clarity between the two different electric sounds, to try to give the organ a little bit of grit, to try to give the piano some clarity so that it can cut through the mix, but then the synth pad underneath the piano to be sort of complementary to that as well. So I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. We may tweak a few things later once we get effects and vocals and other things in there. But let's start with the vocals and see how we can sort of help them kind of come inside the sound of the band and for the lead vocal to rise above the sound of the band.
Doesn't stand a My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Hey! Come on! There's power that can break off every chain. Woo! There's power that can empty out a grave. Hey! There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. There's power that can break off every chain. Hey! There's power that can empty out a grave. Oh no. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear.
So I don't know if you saw what I was doing, but basically for my compressor and my EQ settings on my vocals, an easy way to start sometimes is just to basically find an EQ that is usable and then paste it to every vocal. And then from there, you can tweak based on the tonality of the individual singer. Sometimes it's a way to get things up quickly in a mixed situation like this where I'm trying to do things fast, and it just gives an overall high-pass filter, an overall sort of mid-range tone shaping. Then we can go through each vocalist and try to find the unique tonality in their voices that need to be either cut more or boosted more. But again, sometimes a good way to sort of get there quickly.
Off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My fear
doesn't stand a chance. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Hey! Come on! There's power that can break off every chain.
Good. So now I'm going to see if I can add a little bit more life to those vocals by implementing some of my effects. So we have 4 effects buses on this console. And basically the way I have it set up is I have a vocal verb on effects channel 1. I have a delay on 2. And then 3 is my instrument verb and 4 is my drum verb. So let's just focus on the vocals for a second just to see how we might be able to get those effects to kind of come alive.
Great. Hey! There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. Woo! There's power that can break off every chain. Hey! There's power that can empty out a grave. Oh no. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Hey! Come on! There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name.
So you can see now on the right side of the console, I have my DCA layer up. So I was going back and forth between my aux inputs, which are my effects returns, and my DCA groups. So now that I've got my relative fader positions in place, I can use DCAs to kind of massage the level of overall instrument groups, use that as a remote control for my fader positions, and be able to create some volume changes and some musical interest without having to go back to every single channel input. So DCAs are a good way to, once you get to a point where you're fairly happy with your mix, to kind of massage the layers and levels of every instrument group using the DCAs. Okay, so let's move on to drum bus compression. So I like to have a group that's just the skin drums, kick, snare, and toms, where I can apply compression just to those group of instruments in addition to any compression I'm doing to the input channels, so that I can basically squash that really hard and ride it as an effect underneath the main drums. It really helps me get some clarity and some more sort of snap to the transients in my drum mix. So I've got my other DCAs muted. I just want to focus on drums and bass and see if we can get that compression really dialed in. So here's the drums again without it and with it. So I feel like the kick and snare, particularly those transients, just wake up. I feel like it just gives me a lot of life to the kick and snare. It wakes up those transients, and it's a great effect. And because it's on its own fader, I can ride it in and out as needed. So it's not always on at the same level all the time, but I can use it as a lift for my drums. So let's hear it with everything else.
There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave.
I like that a lot, especially for that bridge. It brings the drums kind of up and makes the whole thing more aggressive. So now I want to do the same thing with my vocals. So I have all my vocals assigned to a subgroup as well that I'll call vocal smash. And again, I just want that to be an additional sort of the sound of just the compression of the group of vocals. So I'll go to my DCAs and mute everything except vocals now and see if we can achieve a similar result.
There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear.
So again, as a group, going for about 10 dB of gain reduction, 4-to-1 ratio. We can mess with the ratio, mess with the attack and release, but the idea is that the vocals as a group get a lift relative to everything else. So let's try to hear that now in context. I'll mute everything else, and let's bring that subgroup down. You'll see me bring it in, and we'll see what happens to the vocals.
There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name.
So now let's just listen. I'll just play kind of the back half of the song, and I'll just kind of mix, trying to rise some levels as we go, and just see kind of how we can create a really engaging musical experience with the mix that we've created.
My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Hey! Come on! There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection